What's up, everybody? Welcome back into an episode of The Lawyer You Know. And today we're going to be reacting to a pretty amazing interview I didn't even know was happening on WEEI, which is a local Boston radio show, I guess. I don't even know. You guys can tell me. I'm sure all of you from Boston, Mass area, where Alan Jackson went on and was asked questions. He was kind of announcing that he is joining Karen Read's civil defense team, but so many things he said we can learn from. And if you read between the lines, you can learn so much from this interview. So I'm excited to watch the entire thing. It's about 30 minutes together to answer your questions and give you the insights I saw and heard as I listened to Alan Jackson explain what's going on and what he thinks about the civil side of things. All right, so everybody's saying it's sports talk radio. Okay, so sports talk radio there, WEEI. I know I've heard of it before, and I think I knew some people that used to be on it that went to other jobs and have podcasts and stuff. But this is amazing. I don't know what Alan Jackson's connection is to them. Seems like he likes them a lot. He was kind of joking around with them. That's also kind of his personality. But it's going to be fun for us to listen to. Let me see which one of these works best. Not that one. Not that one. How about that? We'll do that because it doesn't show Alan Jackson because it's radio. It shows them, but we'll listen to the entire thing. They did an awesome job interviewing him. It was a different interview. It was relaxed. It was fun. It was cool. And like I said, the questions they asked brought out so much information that I was looking for and trying to learn and figure out things. And they got it out of him. So let's, and also I want to point out before we even hear one word out of Alan Jackson's mouth, let's remember what he said about every single thing they did and said publicly in interviews, including Karen Read, was curated, was planned, and had a purpose. And let's remember that as we listen to this. And let's remember, yes, some people in the chat are saying, Alan Jackson, just a civil lawyer. I posted that on Twitter. I knew people were going to be like, once somebody said, you can't even tie his shoes. And it made me laugh hard because, of course, everybody thinks I'm smoking Alan Jackson on there because I said he's just a civil lawyer. Clearly a joke, but it just points out to what we're trying to talk about here so that people can learn what it's like to be a lawyer when you're a trial lawyer, when you do civil, when you do criminal. You can know about both. You can handle both. Usually you want to pick a specialty. Doesn't mean you don't know anything about the other. Now, some civil lawyers and criminal lawyers don't know anything about the other side, but that's not true for all of us. So Alan Jackson, just a civil lawyer. Let's take a listen to his announcement that he's on Karen Read's civil defense team and so much more.
In a case that many in the nation and certainly around here were obsessed with. And joining us this morning on this show for the first time, one of her attorneys, Alan Jackson. Alan, good morning.
Hey, Greg, how are you this morning?
Great to have you on. I know it's early out there in California. Appreciate you taking the time.
Pleasure.
I mean, I've been trying to get you on since the trial, but I mean, I know you had other things you had to do.
Well, you know, I need a little courting. You didn't court me, Greg. Come on.
Well, I tried. You took to Instagram over the weekend to say that you're not done yet and the next chapter is coming. I know there are a lot of us who want to know what that means, Alan.
All right. Before he tells us, now just remember just the plan, the media plan for Karen Read and her team. We saw it throughout the criminal trial, post-criminal trial, in the interview he gave with Howie Carr. Every time we've heard him speak, we are not done. There is more. And we know there's the civil case that the O'Keefe's filed, the 1983 action, and the movie, book, whatever deals are coming. So those three things are still very big and important to Alan Jackson and Karen Read. So let's look at how this interview keeps the momentum going for them and why that's so important.
Well, I was just sort of generally referring to something I'm very excited about, which is I've agreed to join Karen and her very capable defense team in the civil action. So I'll be coming back to Boston. You haven't seen the last of me yet. And the really good news is I'm going to be bringing Elizabeth Little with me as well. So the band is not just staying together, getting back together, but we're intending on writing a few new chapters.
So he's joining her defense team with Elizabeth Little. When you join a civil defense team, if your insurance company is paying for the defense, they have to either choose the defense attorney and they have a list, or they have in-house counsel, depending on who the insurance company is, Or you can ask for private counsel if you are the defendant. Most of the time they say no. If they say yes, and there's a difference in the hourly rate, like their lawyers bill at $200 an hour, you want a $400 an hour lawyer, or $1,000 an hour lawyer, you have to pay the difference as the defendant. There are exceptions, of course, where if you can get somebody like Alan Jackson, maybe the insurance company is going to pay more. Maybe he's really going to make them look good. Go fight for State Farm or Geico or whoever it is. Or, of course, Alan Jackson could take it pro bono, or Karen Reed could hire Alan Jackson as private counsel. I've never done a single second's work for an insurance company, and I never will. That's just a principle I have and don't want to, and I just fight them all day. So that's just something that I do. I don't have anything against people that do work for insurance companies. I never will. But multiple occasions I've been private counsel where somebody chooses to hire me. They pay their hourly rate. Usually it's with huge policies where the insurance company's trying to squeeze out of it and make the individual defendant who's wealthy pay some amount of money on their own, and they want it all to come out of the insurance company. But the point being, there are multiple ways you can join a defense team. The insurance company can hire you and pay you. There can be a split payment. You can take it pro bono, or you can be personal counsel. And what personal counsel can do is anything Karen Reed wants to do, because the insurance company looks out for the insurance company, number one, generally, right? And they'll even write a letter to a civil defendant saying, we will help you. We will make these suggestions to you, but we can't do anything to hurt the insurance company. Basically, we're going to have to get conflict counsel if that happens. So it's very important for civil defendants to have somebody looking out for them. So I'm glad Karen Reed has her own team. And I think regardless of what happened here, there is going to be an element that they are looking out for her, number one. They are her personal counsel, regardless of the work they may do for the insurance company, which can make it a little hairy if the insurance company is the one paying them. But all of that, just some inside baseball for how civil defense cases work and the different ways you can bring on somebody from your team, because you may have been in a car accident and you may think to yourself, I didn't get to pick my civil lawyer. Why does Karen Reed get to pick them? Well, those are the options that she may have.
That legal team, you're the legal team that you have joined, has sent subpoenas.
Yes, somebody said auto insurance. Yes, I'm talking about car insurance, because this is a car accident case. They're accusing Karen Reed of hitting John O'Keefe with her car. So her car insurance would come in, and not only do they have a policy covering her, but they pay for the defense. So they'll pay for lawyers, they'll pay for experts, they'll pay the filing fees, they'll pay all the costs. You pay for that in most of your car insurance contracts. So that's what's happening here. You don't usually get to pick and choose, a high profile, expensive lawyer to join your defense team. Usually those are extenuating circumstances.
To the Mass State Police and the Norfolk DA's office, seeking information on witnesses who testified at the trial, on Michael Proctor, and on evidence from the federal investigation. We discussed the federal investigation a lot on this show. From your perspective, in your opinion, did that federal investigation end?
No, I've never heard of such a thing. I know what Mr. Brennan said. I know what the hired gun said in court about being contacted and there being a closure to the case. We weren't contacted. I was never contacted. I've never heard a word of that directly from the horse's mouth. And I've been doing this for a long time. And I can tell you, it's not a thing. It's just not Greg, you just don't do that. As a prosecutor, especially a federal prosecutor, you don't look at the target, call the target and say, oh yeah, we're done. We're done here. What if something new comes up tomorrow or next week or next month? And you're within the statute. You don't, quote unquote, close investigations. So that's something that I'd never heard of. And I no, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a quote unquote closed investigation. They can say whatever they want over at the Norfolk DA's office. I'm sure that was a curated comment or a series of comments, but I'll leave it to the feds to do what the feds do best, and that is to investigate. That's exactly what I think is continuing to happen. But that's
no surprise there, right? His answer is exactly what we've been saying all along. Sure, they said it. I mean, we're not going to say lawyers lie. We don't know. It's very weird. But even if it's closed, it could be reopened if they have something new. So nothing really new there, except he did confirm he never had a conversation with them. They never told him that the investigation was closed. You guys have some great questions here that I want to get to. Can the insurance company not get involved now, though, due to the DUI conviction? Absolutely not. They can absolutely still get involved, because if you're saying there's no crash, you as the insurance company, just because she was driving drunk, let's say, she's convicted of that. That doesn't mean you should have to pay for anything if she didn't hit anybody. If there's no collision, you as the insurance company want to fight to not pay for that, because that's what insurance companies do. Will ARCA be coming back? That's a great question. They can if the insurance company wants to use them. If I was Alan Jackson or her civil defense attorneys, I would tell the insurance company, it's going to be cheaper to hire ARCA because they've already done all this base work. We're just going to have to pay them to testify. We don't even have to pay them to do any extra testing. If we get our own experts, they'll be more expensive, even if per hour ARCA is more expensive. And if the ARCA doesn't work with this insurance company, they look even less biased than if the insurance company uses the same old experts they always use. So it is a chance that they do use ARCA, even without an accident report. So yes, Tracy, you can still bring a car accident claim or lawsuit without an accident report. It actually happens more than you would think that an accident happens. Both sides say, I don't need to file a report. And the person gets back in their car. The adrenaline comes down and they're like, oh, I can't move my neck. And they have to call an ambulance, get them to the hospital. So it happens more than you would think. Or if it's on private property, sometimes certain jurisdictions won't do an accident report. You don't have to have an accident report to file a civil lawsuit. And most people don't know this as well. Most of the time, the accident report is inadmissible evidence. You can't even use it at trial in most car accident cases. Still confused how they go on with this after her acquittal, though. Well, two different courts, civil court and criminal court, different burdens of proof. So it's a lower burden beyond a reasonable doubt is criminal. It's the highest burden, greater weight of the evidence or preponderance of the evidence. 51% is civil. Much easier to prove a case in civil court than criminal court. So if you lose in civil court, it's going to be pretty tough to go win in criminal court, but vice versa. It does happen sometimes. It's not great. It's definitely good for Karen Reed that she won in the criminal court, but it doesn't mean that they can no longer bring the civil case. Rebecca said, fantasy football. We are getting so close. That's going to be this month's Members Only Live is our fantasy football draft and stuff for the Lawyer Members Only League. If you want to get into that, make sure you join our membership. Let's get back to the interview.
It's just my opinion.
Speaking of that, of the DA's office, should the taxpayers in this state be concerned with how much was spent on both of these trials?
Oh God, yes. Yeah, this is the DA's office serves at the pleasure of the public. He's an elected official, and he's got responsibility to the public for their confidence and to their pocketbooks. I have no idea how much they spent. I know how much we spent, and I can imagine they spent as much or more. I mean, there were millions and millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money spent that was completely unnecessary because of a persecution, not a prosecution, because of some sort of a personal vendetta. After the first trial, everybody knew what had happened inside that jury room, inside that deliberation room. She was acquitted. I've talked about this, the fact that Karen and I and our team may be the only attorney-client relationship where we've actually acquitted someone of murder twice in the same case with the same charges. They knew that they couldn't prove this case coming out of the first trial. They knew.
So I'm going to pause this a lot, by the way, because there's just so much between the lines here. So you hear that, and everything is purposeful that Alan Jackson says, I believe. That, to me, when you start talking about prosecutorial misconduct in 1983 claims and what they did, what they hid, how they handled this case, that gives them multiple options, right? The case as a whole, the cover-up, whatever you want to say, the conspiracy, but also post-trial one, the decisions they made, how they acted, what they did or didn't do, what they did or didn't recognize. Maybe he's trying to set up even more that they knew they should not have gone forward on that second claim, and they did because it was a personal vendetta, and the taxpayers should not have to pay for their elected officials' personal vendettas. Just think about that, right? And how you can kind of build a storyline in a case after that.
They couldn't prove the case going into the first trial, and that they pressed forward. And then, of course, following the debacle of the first trial and the joke that was the unrecorded verdict, they forged ahead again. And it was it turned from a professional objective prosecution of a case to a personal vendetta, and it cost the taxpayers millions and millions and millions of dollars. I mean, just their special prosecutor alone, his bill was north of $500,000, closing in on $600,000, just him, for a completely failed prosecution.
Which is odd. You worked in the DA's office in Los Angeles as an ADA.
Yeah.
You have perfectly capable ADAs who could have tried this case, and it wouldn't cost you $600,000, correct?
Now, does it sound familiar? It feels like what me and my dad and me and Mark Bedero talked about the last couple of videos. It's exactly the same theme here. So not a ton to take away here new, but listen to Alan Jackson's take on what the DA does, what the purpose of the DA's office is, and if the taxpayers should be upset at everything they had to pay for, knowing they have a full office of assistant district attorneys that should be able to handle this.
That's normally the way it goes.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, that's normally the way it goes. And if Michael Morrissey didn't have those kinds of prosecutors who could try the case capably, then maybe he needs to find another job. That's his only job, is to populate the courtrooms with people who are competent, not just competent, but ethical. I don't know, maybe there were some ethical prosecutors inside that office who said, not just, I can't. They probably could have prosecuted the case. It's just a matter of calling witnesses and doing an opening and closing statement, putting on some evidence. I think he had prosecutors who said they wouldn't because it's unethical. They didn't believe in it. So what does he do? He goes outside the parameters of the contours of.
Nothing happens by accident, right? He's like, I even think there were some people that thought it was unethical, just sprinkling all this out there for the internet to run with. He knows people are listening and hanging on his every word.
His office and finds some defense attorney to come on board and switch hats midstream and become a prosecutor. It's outrageous. You just don't see this kind of thing.
Alan, I was so impressed with how you and your team were able to handle the first trial and the second trial, but it did feel so drastically different, the way in which you decided to handle witnesses. And the first trial seemed like there was just bombshell after bombshell. It was much more McAlbert's heavy, while the second trial was much more database. What went into the decision to kind of switch things up and choose to go down that road at the second time around?
There wasn't a marked difference in what our theme and theory of the case was.
I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree that there wasn't a marked difference. It was as marked as you get from trial 1 to trial 2 for me. I get what he's saying, that they still believe the underlying theme. And here's what I think is happening. I think he's trying to twist the tide back, because the reasonable doubt, second trial, no doubt about it, perfect defense, great job, full acquittal, hats off, A+. But now, to twist the tides back and push the momentum back onto the McCabe's and the Alberts and the conspiracy and the cover-up and Proctor and the police and Morrissey, to change that narrative and build that momentum back there is good for three things. It's good for the defense of the civil suit. It's good for the prosecution of the 1983 action, if they bring one, as Karen Reed's team. And it's good for the book and the movie deal, right? That plays for a book and a movie. So I think this is Jackson, again, very intelligently setting up what is to come. It's not over. They still have a lot of work to do. So they have a media plan. Everything is curated. Everything is planned. This is how a lawyer should handle media relations, and why usually lawyers don't have a PR team, right? Usually lawyers are the PR team. We are the mouthpiece. We are the ones that we want to go hear what we have to say, right? That's usually what lawyers are. So I think that's what's happening here. And man, does he do a good job of doing it.
As a matter of fact, there was no difference in what our theme and theory of the case was, which is the SUV never hit John. He wasn't killed by being hit by a car. That's the basic postulate. In the second trial, it was very clear that the prosecution was going to do something different. They were going to try to style themselves as a data-driven prosecution. We knew that the data helped us. So any trial lawyer has to do this. You have to be committed to your cause, but you also have to be able to be up on the balls of your feet. You have to be able to be nimble and pivot with the prosecution, because you're not just parrying, you're defending, but you're also, to a certain degree, you're on the offense as well. So what we decided to do was shift and learn from the first trial that I wanted to press much, much, much harder on reasonable doubt and undermining everything they say about the data, because the data actually served our purposes. The data proved that the car did not hit, it did not collide with John O'Keefe. And so that's what you saw.
So some people are saying I'm freezing. I think it's a YouTube issue, actually. I know it happened yesterday, and Kelsey said it wasn't happening before she posted it, and I'm having no issues or freezing on my end. So I do think it's a bit of a YouTube issue with the freezing. We will push through just like we did yesterday. You know, if we hit the like button enough times, it's possible that we can eliminate the freezing issue. So let's hit the like button. A couple more questions here. Rebecca said, let's go. I have worked the last 9 out of 10 days. Awesome to catch this live. I absolutely love Alan Jackson and the way he speaks. what I think is really cool, the way he speaks is great, but the way his brain works is cool from a lawyer's point of view, and how he handles these interviews. I like it. It's everything is an opportunity, and you use the opportunity in a number of different ways. I like the way he uses the opportunity. He doesn't need anybody to blow smoke and say what a great job he did. He's got a method to his madness. Can they talk about the FBI investigation in the civil trial? They'll be able to talk about it as much as is available and not sealed or confidential. No fault insurance would still cover. No. Yes. So in Florida, at least, this is the specialty, but most no fault is the same. No fault insurance doesn't mean somebody is not at fault. It usually means you have some kind of insurance in place that will protect you no matter who is at fault. So if you have personal injury protection, $10,000 in Florida will cover me whether I'm at fault or whether I'm not at fault. That doesn't mean I can't go prove somebody else is at fault, and the additional bodily injury coverage they have will pay for my damages. So we're not going to get into a complete go through the how civil statutes work and negligence cases work yet. If you guys want it, of course, that's my specialty. I'm behind, but wanted to ask if the civil trial is streamed. So good trouble. I'm not going to answer this question, not because I'm being a jerk, but because it's coming later in this interview and Alan Jackson gives us his thoughts on it. So great question. And that's what's so cool about this interview. There were so many nuggets from it. What further evidence can she bring in that she couldn't in the criminal trial? Michelle, again, another great question that Alan Jackson is going to answer for you later in this interview. And that's, folks, what they call in the business a tease.
On the second trial is a much more sort of tactical approach. They didn't call certain witnesses. They didn't call Brian Higgins. They didn't call Brian Albert. There were big witnesses that they just forwent altogether. We knew that there was a chance they would do that. We didn't know until they closed their case who they were and weren't going to call. They didn't have to tell us in advance what their trial strategy was. But we were ready and able to sort of pivot on the move to not just defend against what they were presenting data-wise, but to attack them for not calling people like, oh, I don't know, how about Michael Proctor, the lead investigator on whose shoulders you base the entire prosecution, and you don't call him. So we knew that there was going to be some shifts, and part of being a good trial lawyer is to be able to make those shifts sort of on the fly, and that's what we did. And we did it with Karen's approval and with the rest of the team's approval.
Speaking of Michael Proctor, he has had a civil service hearing yesterday trying to get his job back, saying that suggestion is that he was not treated like other troopers. Does he deserve to be a trooper in Massachusetts?
Oh my God. No, please tell me they're not going to give him his job back. He's claiming he wasn't treated like other troopers. Well, then act like other troopers. Don't do what you did, which is to take your trooper's hat off and to become a sort of a sideshow. This guy had so many biases going into the case. I mean, it was embarrassing. I don't need to go into, and I won't go into all the details of what he did, not just to the investigation, but to Karen Reed personally, just dehumanizing her, maintaining relationships with the people that he should have been investigating, the very people he should have been investigating. No. Look, to be a sworn officer and to take on the mantle of the protection of the community, that is a privilege, Greg and Courtney. That's a privilege. That is not a right. And he squandered that privilege with bias and a lack of objectivity and lying through his teeth about his own relationships, about dehumanizing with conduct that was dehumanizing of the person he was supposed to objectively be investigating. No, he's lost all his right to carry a badge and a gun. He's an embarrassment. He should never, ever, ever be in a position to control the community members that he serves. And that's exactly what being a police officer allows you to do. It's a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with his Proctor take. Again, nothing really new there. Mary C. Peter, if you could ask Alan Jackson one question, what would it be? So like right now, it might be something he's not going to answer, which we'll hear. Like, what are your best arguments in the 1983 action? How do you think you're going to go forward on the 1983 action? But honestly, there's no way I could just come up with one question for Alan Jackson. I have way too many questions for Alan Jackson. Way too many. Jen G said, where are you today? I'm in North Carolina. We're working from North Carolina. It's kind of our last little trip as just a family before school starts, but still getting a lot of work done here as well. It's easy to work here because we can settle in to our place and just kind of work and chill. And it's just kind of like a cooler vibe. And it's also like 60 degrees here and 105 degrees at home, which is amazing. And speaking of that, so many people ask me how I got over jet lag in Greece. So let's take a listen to how I did it. There's so much I want to say about today's sponsor, Dream by Beam, which is a nutritious, sleepy supplement that I absolutely love. So many people ask me about how I dealt with jet lag on my trip to Greece. Big time change. It can wreck your entire vacation, but not for me because I pushed through that first day, drank a bunch of coffee, and took Dream before I went to bed and got 8 full, rock solid hours of sleep. It not only helped me fall asleep, but stay asleep. So when I woke up, I was refreshed and ready to attack this trip. But there's so much more going on at this company. From August 1st to August 31st, Beam will be running their back to school campaign where Beam Kids will be up to 50% off, which is their biggest discount on Beam Kids ever. It's a greens supplement for kids. And my kids are trying it and so far so good. This could be a huge health supplement for your kids because very few kids get the greens that they need. And as far as Dream goes, if you've got to fight jet lag or just general sleepiness, if you have problems going to sleep, falling asleep, or staying asleep, please try Dream. I really think you'll like it. And right now you can get up to 35% off with our code, which is LYK. So go to shopbeam.com/LYK. Check out all the different discounts you can get and all the products that they have, and let me know what you like best. Peter, can we not listen to the interview uninterrupted, please? Yes, you can. Go to WEEI and you can listen to the entire thing uninterrupted. Not what we do here on this channel, though, because the point is, I think, for us to discuss it, answer the questions you have, and give what I'm seeing and hearing as we go through it, okay? So I really want to encourage you to go check it out on their channel because they did a great job with the interview.
Power. And he's not someone who should ever be commissioned with that power ever again.
Alan, you discussed objectivity. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you miss Judge Bev?
Oh my God.
No surprise here, but he is about to go off on Judge Cannone, which most people said, oh, he's only willing to do that because he's not going to find himself back in a Massachusetts court. Au contraire, my friend, he's already on the civil case back in a Massachusetts court. He tells him at the end to keep the chowder warm for him. He's still going to go off on Judge Bev Cannone.
It's a whopper. If I go the rest of my life and never have to walk into a room with Judge Bev, God bless her, it'll be too soon. Yeah. And by the way, that's the other thing is, I don't have to say it. I was right there in the mix. I was in the fishbowl. I was wondering if others were clocking what I was seeing. Sometimes you're so far in it. It's like a fish that doesn't know it's wet. I wasn't sure if others were seeing what I was seeing inside that courtroom, but a judge's job is to absolutely be unbiased, to put all of the biases aside. Everybody comes into life in these situations with certain biases. The job of a judge is to put those biases aside. And she showed very, very quickly and undeniably that she could not and would not do that. There were rampant biases in favor of the prosecution, in favor of the Commonwealth, in favor of Mr. Lally and Ms. McLaughlin, in favor of Mr. Brennan once he took over, and against the defense from nearly day one, nearly from the moment I walked into court the first time on September 25th, 2022. So no, there was a breakdown of the entire system, and she was part of it.
Do you believe that there was a conspiracy to frame Karen Read, or we debated this a lot on this show with Curtis, or do you think it was just awful investigative work?
It's a combination of both, for sure, in my opinion. A combination of both. There was an awful investigative work, but it wasn't just incompetence. It went beyond just incompetence. You could read.
What does that make you think? It went beyond just incompetence. 1983 action, maybe? Terrible investigative work? Yes, it was terrible, but it went beyond just incompetence. Pick up those things when you listen to these interviews without me. Pick up those things. What does he mean? Why is he saying that? Is it hyperbolic? Is he planning on using it? Does he have the evidence? Does he have the goods, right? When the first thing I ever heard in this case was the opening statement of trial number 1, I was like, oh boy, do they have the goods? And now he's going to get the opportunity potentially in the civil defense but also in a 1983 action to show him.
In Michael Proctor's text messages, that it wasn't just incompetence. He had a view of her. He had a thought process about her from nearly day one, right? 16 hours into the investigation, he was already determining that he was going to make sure that it was going to get pinned on the girl. She's going to pay for this. Right? He said it out loud. He said the quiet part out loud. So it's not just incompetence. So now once you go beyond outside the parameters of just incompetence and being stupid, which there was a lot of idiots involved in the investigation as well. Once you go beyond those parameters, now you start getting into the very troubling area of a cover-up. Well, we know that tragically, an officer has lost his life. And we also...
So interesting just thought there on a civil case, part of what the plaintiffs, the O'Keefes, have to prove is the damages where what is John O'Keefe's life worth? And in most civil cases, this is something I'd love to talk to Alan Jackson about actually. In most civil cases, not all, but most, they say, okay, we're liable. Like if I'm suing a trucking company and they hit somebody and severely injured or even killed somebody, one of my clients, they would say, okay, fine, we're at fault for the accident, but we don't agree on the damages. I'm wondering how Karen Reed's team is going to attack that because they've spoken highly of John O'Keefe. Generally, we know they have the fights and the voicemails, text messages, things like that. But maybe they're going to say, yeah, sure, his life was worth an insurmountable amount because he was taking care of those kids. He was such a great guy. But we're fighting liability, meaning we're not at fault. There was no collision. We didn't cause him to die. So while the damages are huge, we agree with you. We'll agree on damages and fight liability, which is flipped. Not all civil cases, but the majority of civil cases. Dr. Tiny Tough, glad you're on this. Like you said to Betero, this is only the beginning. I wonder what would be happening with all this stuff if the jury had found Karen Reed guilty. It would be a completely different vibe. And what I will also say, Alan Jackson joining the civil defense team, Alan Jackson being on the 1983 action, all of that adds to this story, right? This story, book, movie, whatever, the way everybody looks at this scenario. And I said, listen, if I was Karen Reed, I may be like, insurance company, if you can pay this to settle it, be done with it. He's going to talk about why maybe I'm completely off base on that and that ain't going to happen. She ain't going to do that because that's not in her. She doesn't have that in her to do it. But this is all something that's part of a bigger picture.
Know that we're going to pin it on this girl. So what does that mean by definition, Greg? What does that mean by definition? It means that you're going to cover up what actually did happen. You're going to actively cover up who's responsible. And lo and behold, isn't it amazing that the person that's supposed to be investigating is connected to and related to, and with personal relationships, to the very people that should have been number one, number two, number three on the suspect list. So you tell me, was Karen Reed framed?
Alan, since the second trial, there have been videos, photos making their way around social media of inside 34 Fairview. It seems like the new owners let you guys inside, whether you were down in the basement looking at the flooring that was pulled up inside the garage.
Right.
There was a video of you outside yelling, and from the Albert's bedroom, you could hear yourself pretty clearly. Will there be any type of...
So Michelle, I'm going to back it up just because I paused it right in the middle of her saying this. This goes to your question. Will there be anything new? Will there be anything different that comes out in the civil case, or have we heard it all in the criminal case? So pay attention to this exchange here.
Inside social media. Since the second trial, there have been videos, photos making their way around social media of inside 34 Fairview. It seems like the new owners let you guys inside, whether you were down in the basement looking at the flooring that was pulled up inside the garage.
Right.
There was a video of you outside yelling, and from the Albert's bedroom, you could hear yourself pretty clearly. Will there be any type of... I know that you guys have signed on for different media rights. Will there be any type of way to dive deeper into that? Will that come up in anything?
Well, the pain point that the plaintiffs are going to have in their civil suit is
the plaintiffs are the O'Keefes. By the way, a bunch of people asking about 1983 action. On one of my prior videos, I went into it a lot more, and maybe I will on a future video. I don't want to hog the mic from Alan Jackson. I want to hear from him and kind of focus on what he's talking about. We'll do deeper dives in the civil suit in 1983 action. 1983 generally is a violation of your civil rights, so you can sue law enforcement, things like that. Rodney King is a 1983 action, if you think about it from that perspective. we went into it in detail. It was a couple videos ago if you want to check that out.
This is a very different lawsuit. It's not a criminal lawsuit, and it's certainly not being governed by Judge Beverly Cannone, who kept out so much of that information. That's why you're seeing it on social media rather than having seen it in the courtroom. All of it was relevant. We attempted to get most of it in, and we were denied, both in the first trial and the second trial. So this new lawsuit is probably a very good platform, I'd say, I would suggest to you, for a lot of that information to be aired out completely. So yeah, I don't, that's not the last you're going to see of that information.
So Michelle, to answer your question, yes, Alan Jackson, there's going to be a lot of new information and evidence coming out, a lot of which they tried to get into in the criminal case. Cannone wouldn't let it happen. He says this is a different courtroom. It's a civil case, not a criminal case, a different judge, and all those things we saw, pictures of the garage, Alan Jackson screaming that you could hear it inside of the master bedroom. So all of those things that he tried to get in, he's like, we think we're going to be able to get him in the civil case. And the civil case is going to be a beacon of hope for all this new evidence and information that should have come in but didn't before. Oh boy, how bad is it going to look for Judge Cannone if all of this stuff should have come in the criminal case? Now, no harm, no foul, she got acquitted. But that's also what we might hear from the sidebars. Were they trying to get certain things in? What arguments was Hank Brennan making to keep this stuff out? All of that is something I think people will be very interested in.
Just
that and a lot of other information.
To be clear, when you said this new lawsuit is, so you're joining her civil defense team.
What a great question here. What a great transition to question, because we all want to know, is there going to be a 1983 action? He's like, you keep saying new lawsuit. The civil lawsuit you joined the defense team on is an old lawsuit. It's not a new lawsuit. Are you guys filing a 1983 claim? Great question.
The last you're going to see of that information.
Just
that and a lot of other information.
To be clear, when you said this new lawsuit is, so you're joining her civil defense team to defend against the wrongful death suit. Are you also, correct, is Karen also planning a federal lawsuit on this case?
So that's a interesting question, not one that I'm willing to talk about right now. We have a
you're under. Can I remind you? Can I remind you you're under oath?
Counselor, I object, and I move to strike that comment from the record immediately.
By the way, also, I offered countless legal strategies during the trial to Alan. Didn't use a single one of them. I just want to make that clear right now.
I think Alan needs your help.
Yeah, I've seen carnival psychics with a better track record than Greg when it comes to legal prowess. I'm just suggesting maybe not.
Alan,
Greg,
Curviel, just wait. We get even more of a yes. I agree with you. There's no doubt in my mind a 1983 action is coming after this interview, but let's keep listening.
Hey, we'll see what this new lawsuit entails. I can tell you this. I can say this. Karen has proved herself to be a fighter. She's not going to sit back in a corner and get punched, right? Everybody has a plan. I would suggest the following. Everybody has a plan, as the old saying goes, that Mike Tyson made famous, until they get hit in the mouth. And Karen Reed has shown that she knows how to hit others in the mouth, meaning how to fight back. I doubt seriously she's going to be a wallflower.
Careful with that statement, right? She's shown she can hit other people in the mouth. He's like, meaning like legally speaking, like in the lawsuit. So that doesn't sound like she's going to settle the civil case, right? Which would be Peter's wrong. She doesn't settle the civil case. She fights it tooth and nail and has another trial, which again would be surprising, but this case is one of one. And it tells me they're filing the 1983 action. Like he's all but confirming it to me in this interview, even though he said, I don't want to talk about that at this time. And that can be one of two reasons. Either Karen Reed just doesn't want him to yet, or something with the movie, book deal, things like that.
During the course of this new litigation. So whatever that means, we'll see.
Okay. Alan, I know you're probably got something else to do this morning than talk to us. I just am so curious about the period between the trials. As someone who's, I don't understand, I've never studied law. Is there any prerequisite or is there any onus on the Norfolk County DA to prove either new information, or how did you go from the ending and the conclusion of the mistrial into the beginning of the next trial? What was that process like, and what did the state have to do?
That's a great question. The state has an obligation, an ongoing obligation, to ensure that they do not ever present a case in front of a jury that they do not believe can be proved beyond any and all reasonable doubt to a jury of 12 objective community members. All right, that's the postulate, right? That's the baseline. They have an ongoing obligation to establish. That's the ethics of a prosecutor. You cannot just prosecute a case because it sits on your desk. You have to be convinced as a prosecutor, as an ethical.
But he's going to go into a whole thing that he's going to use in the 1983 action here. And while I 100% agree with him, I've said it a million times, I wouldn't have tried this case. I would have quit. But that's not going to be enough, right? You need more. He knows that, but this is a building block, right? He's building things, setting them on top of each other, and he's going to start to build the whole picture that everybody in the world could potentially see. Rebecca said, "Oh, so sweet. Enjoy the rest of your free time with the kiddos and your beautiful bride. On us, at least we can help. Hit that like, sending love from North Dakota, not North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina. So the love's coming from North Dakota to North Carolina. Thank you so much, Rebecca, our defending champion in the Fantasy Football League, which gets you automatic entry into this year's league. So that's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it, taking Rebecca down because, it's between me and her last year. So we'll see what happens this year.
Prosecutor, that you can prove the case, prove all the elements of all the charges beyond any and all reasonable doubt to a jury, an independent jury. So after the first trial, it was our thought, there's no way that these folks are going to come back to the drawing board and say, oh yeah, we're going to do this again. It was nearly 4 months the first time, 3 months and a few days the first time. It ended with, very famously now, it ended with acquittals that were not recorded. Of course, the DA's office is going to go back, sit down at their desk, take a deep breath and realize, hey, you know what, guys and gals? We did the best we could. We put this case forward the first time. Didn't work out. It's not going to work out any better. We don't have any new and different evidence. It's going to be the exact same thing the second time. It's going to cost the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars. We're going to take the loss and walk away. It's the just thing to do. That's the conversation they never had. What Michael Morrissey conversely did is he goes back to the drawing board and says, who can I hire outside the office who's willing to take this piece of garbage lawsuit and prosecute it? Oh, nobody in the office? I'll just go pay someone. I'll literally, it's offensive. It's offensive. I'm just going to go write someone a big enough check, basically bribe someone to come on board with a big check and prosecute the case that nobody else in the office can or will do. So what happened between the first and second trial is offensive. It never should have happened, and it was a complete abrogation of their obligations, and it's in keeping with Michael Morrissey's entire tenure as the DA. It's a fiefdom. He runs that like a lord and his manor. He doesn't run it like a.
So again, when you talk 1983 action and you want to keep going up the chain, this is how you explain it exactly like he is. And he did it multiple times throughout this interview, which is why I think he's honing his focus in here. Lisa, thank you so much for gifting a Lawyer membership. And Susan C., thank you for gifting 5 Lawyer memberships. Maybe some fantasy football players coming in.
Public official. He's a disgrace. He's an absolute disgrace.
How deep do you think if you consider this to be corruption, how deep do you think it goes here in Massachusetts?
To its core. And that, when I say that, I don't mean that every single Massachusetts State Police officer is corrupt. Not by a long shot. Most of them are hardworking men and women who get up every day and do the job that would strike fear in the rest of us, right? They run toward the danger. They run toward the bullets and the fire and the fights and those things. I have the deepest admiration for the lion's share of the men and women who do that job. I also have a deep admiration for the lion's share of the prosecutors who populate courtrooms around Massachusetts. But what I've seen during my time in Massachusetts, it hasn't been all that long, a few years, going on 4 years now of working in Massachusetts pretty regularly. It's not a couple of cops. It's not just a couple of cops. What are the odds that you would get a Proctor and a Buchanan and a Tully and these folks that have all been disciplined, Kevin Albert, who have been disciplined, some of them have been fired, almost all of them have been removed from their positions in one case. What are the odds The odds are almost zero unless the corrupt.
The odds aren't good. The odds aren't good. I've never seen it before personally. And we've seen some corruption, some things happen, but this case, again, is just one of one. And when you have one of one, because 1983 actions are very difficult. Again, I talk about that a lot in another video, but what helps them is the momentum, the public push, everybody in Massachusetts realizing how corrupt this is. Guess what? Those are going to be the people sitting on this jury. Do you think Karen Reed's going to win? And if she wins, how big? It's going to be huge. If it's me, I clean it up and I pay her, and I pay her a lot. So this thing doesn't even have to go to trial if she wants to, right? I mean, think of all the millions that he was talking about that were already spent prosecuting her. Oof, oof. M said, this is awesome. We love Jackson. I haven't been on in a while. I see you're still dominating. Well, M, you got to come around. Come around. Hang out.
Goes extremely deep unless that kind of conduct is rife throughout the community of the Massachusetts State Police. And also, it doesn't just go deep, it goes high. Michael Morrissey is at the top of that list. He knows better. He damn well knows better. He's a political hack who knows better. And all he cares about is his next election. That's all he gives a crap about, which is offensive.
Were you surprised to see Commissioner Cox say that he had no idea that Kelly Deaver was even involved in the Karen Reed case?
How he would be on there. He actually said, "I've never said the name Karen Reed. That name has never crossed my lips. I've never talked about her or talked about this case." Are you kidding? Are you kidding me? One of your officers was fallen. One of your cops was found dead on a lawn of one of your cops. And one of your, the third leg of that stool is one of your cops is central to the case, dealing with not just one of your officers who's dead, but on the central piece of that puzzle is it happened on one of your officers' lawns. And you're telling me you've never said the name, you don't know the name Karen Reed, you've never heard of this case, you don't know anything about it? Well, either you're incompetent or you're lying, one of the two. And now that you're saying that conversation with Kelly Deaver, however she wants to pronounce it, never took place, are you kidding me? Then that tells you one of two things is true. Either you're lying, Commissioner Cox, or you've just proved my point that she's a liar. Which one is it?
It's exactly what we said when we heard the interview as well. Jessica, Peter, do the Alberts and McCabe's have an argument for defamation against Karen if they can prove what she's saying is wrong and that she said it factually and not just her opinion? She's kind of been a little bit more vague about how things are happening or what exactly they know, what they can't know. To me, most of what she's saying is couched in, we can't prove it because they did a bad investigation. So you can't just say, can somebody win a defamation case or not? If they tried, I think it'd be extremely difficult for them. Extremely, extremely difficult. I'd say highly, highly unlikely they would ever be successful in a defamation case against Karen Reed. That's my guess at this point. Cheryl, in my opinion, Alan Jackson wants to help Karen Reed, but also expose the corruption in that county and hold the people responsible accountable. He wants to help finish what Turtle Boy started. Ashley, Peter, how will they impeach the accident reconstructionist in the civil trial? Well, they might not. I mean, you say they. I always do this with people like, to be specific. When you say they, do you mean will Karen Reed impeach or will the O'Keefes impeach ARCA? Because somebody asked about ARCA earlier. But if we're saying how will Karen Reed impeach Welcher, we don't know that the civil attorneys, the plaintiff's attorneys are going to use Welcher. If it was me and I was handling the O'Keefe prosecution of this, I would not be using Judson Welcher. I'd be using somebody else. So that's impeachment enough, in my opinion. Could the FBI come in for all the money Morrissey used in the case? Could that fit under mishandling of funds or fraud? Again, you're asking me about questions I don't know the details to, so it's hard for me to say. But if they determined that it was a waste and Hank Brennan lost and they paid all this money to lose, that's not a misappropriation, right? That's not, if he paid for him to do the job that he did, that's not a misappropriation usually. But if he was like, hey, you won't do it. What if I give you an extra $250? Then will you do what I want you to do, even though you know it's wrong and unethical? Then we could be getting into problems. So we'd have to know kind of the backdoor details. Will we ever find that out? I don't know. Greg Hill was the host of the greatest morning show in Massachusetts history for decades. Interesting. Yeah, I see a bunch of people posting about him. I think he's funny. How will they find a new jury after all the public attention? somehow, some way, Marlene, I think this is a great question, but they always do. They always do. Especially in civil cases, I think they'll be able to. With a big time, in-depth voir dire jury selection process, I think they can do it.
Well, Alan, you did have a good officer on the stand, though, for you guys, and Officer Baros. And in my opinion, watching that unfold, I think he's the reason, one of the main reasons that the jury swayed in your direction. I mean, he seemed like he was almost a smoking gun.
Nick Baros is a hero, no question. Like I said, most of the men and women carrying a badge and carrying a gun do God's work every single day, and he's among those. He is an absolute hero. He was willing to step up. There was no thin blue line. That's not the cloth from which he's cut. He doesn't care about those kinds of things. He's going to tell the truth because that's what he does. It's what he saw. It's what he heard. Whatever that is, that's what he's going to testify about. And that's what he did. He had the guts to get up on the witness stand and tell the jurors exactly what he saw. And what he saw was, and what he established was, that taillight was not broken, not completely smashed out when Michael Proctor first got a hold of that truck. It did not look like it did after he got a hold of it, and after all those taillight pieces were found at 34 Fairview. That tells the jury all they need to know about the condition of the taillight and what Michael Proctor and his people were doing with that car.
Alan, who is in the running to play you in the movie?
I thought it was.
So how about this? How about this question? I'm going to back it up in case you guys missed it, because this is what it's almost over here. So now I want everybody, actually, before we do this, let me answer. Let me see if there's a couple more questions. Please show your shirt. I remember you mentioning it. Yeah, it's Whitney Houston. My wife got it for me for Christmas because her name is Whitney. And so she loves when I wear it. So that's why I'm wearing a Whitney Houston shirt. Let me see. I want to save a couple of these. I'm going to save a couple of these to the end. Rebecca, thank you for gifting 10 memberships. Big time generosity from Rebecca, as always. Thank you so much. Okay, so now is the time. Get your chatting fingers ready. Who do you think should play Alan Jackson in the movie? Where Alan Jackson doesn't say, oh, no, we don't even know if that's happening. It's basically confirmation the movie's happening. Who do you think is going to play Alan Jackson in the movie as we listen to their exchange here?
Alan, who is in the running to play you in the movie?
I thought it was you. You and I talked about this, Greg. You said it was you.
You know, I have done some acting.
You're going to have to go to Modern Pastry and just eat there for the whole civil trial for that to work.
He has an IMDb page, not a big deal.
I mean,
I think there's an undeniable likeness. Come on.
You don't know?
Yeah, I have no idea. Who knows? Who knows?
All right.
Danny DeVito, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and
I like the Ben Affleck connection from Boston. A lot of people have been saying John Hamm. I've seen that a lot. Nick Cage, Tom Cruise. That's funny. I love it. Gabriel Mock, that would be hilarious. That's Harvey Specter for anybody that doesn't know. Robert Downey Jr., that's a good one. Bradley Cooper, interesting.
it is of interest, I think, that you are now joining that team that will not only defend the civil case with Karen, but also decide whether or not there is a lawsuit to be filed. So, Wiggy, did you have one?
The only question I had for
Alan, Wiggy didn't watch much of the trial. I couldn't get him into it. I tried.
He wants Idris to
play.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wiggy, I'll take my apologies now, Wiggy.
No. Believe me.
My apology now.
Listen, the one thing I learned growing up as a kid: always know a defense lawyer. The thing I would just ask is, you know, in this situation, you talked about the money the state spent. Clearly, Karen spent a ton of money. Where does she go to? I mean, it's probably impossible for her to get her life back, but where does she go to be able to recoup some of that money to pay you guys off?
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, look. First of all, I don't care about the money. I've made it pretty clear in other forums that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Every once in a while, you have this magnum opus case in front of you as a lawyer, and you better be willing to step up and do the right thing. Look yourself in the mirror and realize that at the end of your career, there have been times when people have needed you, people in need that can't do what they want to do and need to do without you, and you're just going to step up. So that's what we
you
did.
say that, Alan, you say that and people lose their minds. They say there's no way this guy's working for free. Think of all the attention that he's gotten out of this. Like, what's your answer to that when people say that?
What do you guys think? Before we hear his answer, what do you guys think? Book deals, movie deals. Is he going to get paid back? Is he going to make movie? Or is he doing it out of the goodness of his heart? Is he fighting corruption? Is he just doing it for the right thing? It's just always interesting to hear people's thoughts on it. My thought on it is very simple. Every single human being on this planet makes their own decisions for their own reasons. And it's very difficult to make decisions for other people. Like, I've got 2 little ones I can make all the decisions for right now I want to. But it's always interesting that people have very strong takes. And I get it if you want to be like, I don't know if I believe it or not. We don't know is the point. Take Alan Jackson at his word like we take everybody here on this channel. We do our best to give people the benefit of the doubt. I like a lot of people saying both. Nothing wrong with that.
That's exactly what's happened. I have not asked for a dime from her because it's cost her her life, not just a bank account. It's not, she was not a rich woman to begin with. She was doing just fine. She was doing just fine, and she was certainly better than a lot of folks financially. But she was not a wealthy woman. It cost her everything. It cost her her life, her reputation, her job, her professorship.
You know what this sounds like, folks? Damages for the 1983 action. That's what it sounds like. What's he explaining? What happened to Karen Read? That is what damages are. What has been taken from you by the actions? What did the civil rights violation do? Because if it didn't hurt you and it's like, okay, they stepped over the line of your house, but nothing happened, there's no damages. Oh, no. Alan Jackson's going to explain exactly what the damages are to Karen Read. He's weaved it into this interview.
Higher bank financially. She was not a wealthy woman. It cost her everything. It cost her her life, her reputation, her job, her professorship, her entire bank account. She had to sell her house. She doesn't have a car. It cost her everything. So what am I going to do? Sit there and peel off more layers of that onion? If she were to get some sort of reprieve, some sort of financial reprieve, I couldn't live with myself. I could not live with myself. So every once in a while, it's just the right thing to do. So I don't know where she goes to sort of get her life back. She's going to try. She's going to work for it. She's not going to try. She's going to succeed. She will get her life back. She's going to land on her feet. She already has. This is the first step in that process. But I'm not worried about Karen Read. Karen Read is as tough as nails. She's as tough as shoe leather, and she's not going to let this get her down. There will be another very, very significant chapter to her life. What that looks like, only time will tell.
I'm gonna lock your number in.
Yeah. You may get a call. You may get a call from Wiggy Al.
Yeah,
I might know somebody. I might need you one day.
I like you pro bono.
Civil trial not live streamed, correct?
All right, so here's the little question right at the end. The last 30 seconds, don't turn it off. The last 30 seconds, questions everybody wants the answer to here that we're going to talk about.
Civil trial not live streamed, correct?
Doubtful. No,
Okay.
there hasn't been a request, a media request that I'm aware of, and who knows what the judge would do in that case. But it's very, very unlikely. Very unlikely.
Alan, you're welcome on the show anytime, and look forward to catching up when you get back here in Boston, which became your
You
second.
guys are great. Yeah, keep a bowl of chowder warm for me. I'm coming back.
All right, Alan Jackson, thank you for taking the time, and we will be.
All right, great interview, but let's talk about that at the end here. Will the civil trial be streamed? He said doubtful, but he also said nobody's really asked for it. Ashley said, I will bet Court TV will request streaming the civil trial. So if nobody has pushed to get it streamed, that's step one. And we know from Koberger and all these other cases, Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, when it is limited at all, the conglomerate, the media conglomerate will hire their own lawyers and fight to get inside that courtroom. So if it hasn't even been requested yet, I think that leaves the option open of getting these cameras in the civil courtroom. It is possible. It's not outlawed like now the 1983 action federal, not going to be cameras there. But the wrongful death case, the state civil case there, I think it's possible. I said positive. Possible. Okay. But Jackson said doubtful. And to me, that makes me think that he knows something about this judge, or he knows why that might be very difficult. So I don't really know. It seems like he's got some insight that's why he said it's not likely. It's doubtful, I think he called it. But I think it starts with a request from somebody like Court TV to try and get cameras, to get the public interest, to make the judge weigh the public interest, open access to the courts, even civil courts. Oh yeah, it definitely happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It absolutely happens in civil cases. We've seen it in multiple civil cases. Depp v. Heard, Gwyneth Paltrow, multiple cases. So it definitely can happen. But many times there are sensitive subjects that a judge will say no, privacy issues with the victim's family, minors in this case. So I don't know. I could see that going either way, but if Jackson says doubtful, I'll probably believe him. Lawyer, at what point does Massachusetts AG step in and realize he has to do something about the DA's office? I mean, it seems like we're past that point. I think that was a rhetorical question. When you do the right thing, you are paid in the right way. I like it, Roundup. I like it. Peter, can you please reach out to @Kathleen Parsons? Look back in the chat. She needs you. Look back in chats. It's impossible for me to reach out to her, but if she wants to send me an email, lawyeryouKnow@gmail.com. Or you can DM me on Twitter @lawyeryouKnow or Instagram @TragosLaw. Shoot me a DM there and we'll try to get connected. Members are requesting a themed live. What do you mean by a themed live? I don't know what that means. Kelsey, check in the chat to see what they're asking for. That would be great. I'd love to. We can do a themed fantasy football live where we talk about fantasy football, do the draft and stuff, but also a themed live for everybody not interested in fantasy football. And we can talk about other things as well. Holly, I saw on Bay News 9 that your firm is representing Jose Castro's family. I'm glad you guys are on board to get justice for them. Yes. And that's another case that's wild. That stuff's going to come out that I'm sure you guys are going to see that's going to tick you off. And you're going to learn a lot about how this happened and how it could have been prevented and should have been prevented. So yeah, that is a case that our firm is handling. I'll be intimately involved in that case. Thank you. Shout out to your firm's email address. Oh, shout out your firms. So tragoslaw.com is our firm's website. You can get all of our email addresses and everything on there. All right. That's all we got. We're right at the 1 hour mark. Look at us. Look at us. We're on perfect time. Make sure you guys all hit that like button and please hit subscribe and share this with anybody else following this case, because to me, this answered so many questions so many people had about the civil case, the wrongful death case with the O'Keefes, and the 1983 action that I would love for you guys to share with anybody who has similar questions and is interested in those cases. I appreciate you guys so much. Until next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouKnow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.